Tadej Pogacar has not been affected by the curse of the rainbow jersey. Why, so far in 2025 he's already won the UAE Tour, the Strade Bianche, and two monuments, the Tour of Flanders and Liège, as well as finishing on the podium at Milan-Sanremo and Paris-Roubaix, that race being won by his arch-rival, Mathieu van der Poel. But the reality is that UAE Team Emirates is not only winning with its Slovenian alien. At the time of writing this video, the Emirati team has already achieved 35 victories, with up to 14 different riders, some of whom had not won in a long, long time. Men such as Alessandro Covi and Marc. In other words, UAE Team Emirates is not suffering from the absence of carbon monoxide devices at all. And now they're on track to break the record for victories in a single season set by the legendary HTC Columbia team of Cavendish and Greipel and Boasson Hagen in 2009. And according to UAE Team Emirates, they're doing it without doping. Now today, your favourite cycling uncle will analyse this situation and reveal the big secrets behind the most powerful team in the world. Stay tuned until the end of the video to find out, and of course follow me on my X account, @UncleCycling, for more news. And now, without further ado, let the show begin. UAE continues to insist that its cyclists are completely clean, despite surpassing records set by teams rife with doping. Teams such as Lance Armstrong's US Postal, Jan Ullrich and Eric Zabel's Telecom, and the CSC of the channel's venerable bald friend, Bjarne Riis. Just a few days ago, the popular media outlet Escape Collective showed how the Wikipedia page of UAE Team Emirates General Manager Mauro Gianetti had removed his historic doping episode in the 1998 Tour of Romandy, the one where Dracula Gianetti spent one of his lives after collapsing and abandoning the race in his home country. It's curious that they're so keen to remove all traces of doping from the past of their directors. It's an episode more befitting the hilarious kind of vampire in Renfield, played by Nicolas Cage, than a serious, dangerous man that featured in Bram Stoker's Dracula. We don't know if that vampire blood is the key to UAE riders' flying performances. But what I do know is that there are journalists who, although they want to believe in Pogacar and his natural talent and believe that his performances without getting out of the saddle are the result of simple hard work, they're finding it hard to believe that the UAE Team Emirates managers have radically changed their philosophy. One of these journalists is Jeremy Whittle, who, in The Observer, reminded us in an interesting article of all the doping cases involving Gianetti and Machin as directors in the past. You know, those days of Ivan Mayo, Riccardo Ricco, Leonardo Piepoli, and the strangely forgotten by many, the Bison of La Pesa, Juan Jacobo. Now, Jeremy Whittle is one of the few journalists who has questioned whether Dracula Gianetti and Moonlight Machin, who've been linked to so many doping cases in the past, could currently be involved in this type of cheating. Now, fortunately, Jeremy, here's Uncle Cycling to give you an answer. It should be noted that in the days of Saunier Duval and Geox, Gianetti and Machin had the lowest budget at the highest level of cycling. Now, a low budget means fewer resources, and therefore more rudimentary doping. Mayo was caught doping with EPO in 2007, when it had already been detectable in tests for 6 years. Now, Leonardo Piepoli and Riccardo Ricco believed the words of Dr. Carlo Santuccioni, telling them that they wouldn't test positive for sera. It was undetectable in tests. However, in the 2008 Tour de France, the anti-doping tests carried out by the French anti-doping agency were up to date and perfectly able to detect that kind of doping. Juan Jacobo, for his part, he was caught for anomalies in his biological passport, as if he were a mediocre Portuguese cyclist from Anicola TN21. Old school methods, totally outdated in that epocha. That's why they were caught. But now, UAE Team Emirates, well, that's the richest team in the peloton. Does anyone really think it's an unprepared team? Now, the perfect example is their use of carbon monoxide devices. We already explained how the Russian doctor, Irina Zelenkova, was the one who provided UAE Team Emirates with this improvement in their cyclists' hemoglobin, thanks to the use of these devices. Until January 2025, the use of carbon monoxide was not prohibited, meaning that UAE Team Emirates had been improving the performance of Pogacar and his teammates without cheating. When you have money, you can always stay ahead of the rules using methods that may be sanctioned later, but not at the time. Since carbon monoxide devices have been banned, Machin has reiterated on multiple occasions that they have stopped using them. And it's likely that they've found a new method already to continue improving the performance of cyclists. Methods that we always end up learning about months or even years later. That's why I can assure you that it's highly unlikely that they will end up catching a UAE Team Emirates cyclist as they did in the past. And furthermore, there's one aspect of cycling that Jeremy Whittle and other journalists should really ask themselves about. Is the fight against doping ever going to be really effective in 2025? The UCI's Selfie Lapation, he doesn't take selfies with Pogacar simply because he likes the Slovenian lad. The UCI and ASO are not interested in returning to the days of 2008 either. They have understood that the money they're generating, thanks to riders like Poggi, Van der Poel and Evenepoel, charismatic men who put on shows reminiscent of the golden years of Eddy Merckx, well, it's much, much more interesting than updating the fight against doping and pursuing it with any seriousness. Lapation, he's tired of cycling being associated with doping. You might have seen that he ran to be president of the International Olympic Committee, although he did fail in his attempts. He wants doping to be a thing of the past. He wants Lance Armstrong and Alberto Contador to be the last vestiges of cheaters in the history of the sport. And deep down, he's partly right, because doping today, which exists, is very similar to doping in the past. Growth hormones like those carried by Andrea Piccolo. Blood transfusions, as we saw with Stefan de Neef in Operation Adelas. No, the secret is in the mix. The secret is the same secret as always, just with better technology and a few more refinements. But it's the same secret as always. It comes down to chemistry. Now, as for the secret of UAE Team Emirates, it's not doping, nor is it vampire blood. That's just a crude joke on our part. But Jeremy Whittle, or any journalist with resources who's watching this video and wants to investigate the UCI, the ASO and all these institutions, well, if you want to know more, just ask Marc Soler, the Spanish cyclist, recent winner of the Vuelta a Asturias. He holds the key to understanding how cycling works without doping and without injecting 100 vials of EPO into your body. That's the secret. You just have to ask.